Hi YouTube, I'm Aaron from Lone Star Drift and Drift Week, and Sai is a cameraman, and we're out here in the Pacific Northwest right now, just outside of Portland, and I have a thought piece to kind of chat with you about. So first of all, I'm dropping off the SC300 to the new owner out here. So I'm super excited. Somebody on Drift Week is going to get a new car, and we're at his beautiful property today, and I want to talk to him about something I find very interesting. Now, when we take drift cars, over the years, drift cars have slowly been modified to run big V8s, dog boxes, quick change rear ends, tube frame front and rear, and all kinds of tube work and cage work and all this stuff. And we're slowly building up NASCARs, and it's a very expensive process to do that. We're building up, you know, expensive engines, expensive transmissions, drivetrains, all this stuff. And what if we just went and repurposed already built NASCARs that already have all these parts for less than the price of just a NASCAR transmission? We can get an entire 500 horsepower car and run those. So somebody actually has done that already. The car is pretty successful, works really well, and I'm here to talk to him about the ins and outs of running a NASCAR, circle track car, whatever kind of car you want to talk about. He'll tell us all the details because I don't know much about these things. But we're going to talk today about what it's like to run a NASCAR as a drift car. Does it have enough angle? Does it have any big pain points that make the car not work? And how do you modify the car to work for our purpose? So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're going to have another episode later on where we drive it, but today we're obviously not going to drive it because we're just at his beautiful property. He's got all kinds of super unique stuff around, which you've probably already seen, his little camper truck, all these cool trucks out here. I really want to drive the Excavator more than anything. Maybe he'll let me drive that. And let's go. Come on, Sai. Come, follow me. Thank you so much to BC Racing Coilovers for supporting everything Drift Week does and Lone Star Drift. They are the most supportive coilover company in the world for drifting. Thank you so much. Drifting would not be the same without them. Thank you to ECU Master USA. They make so much standalone ECU stuff, sensors, different parts. They make cool power distribution models. They do so much stuff. The driver, or the owner, Zach, drives with us at Lone Star Drift. He supports a ton of our guys. We really appreciate him, and we really appreciate the product. Thank you so much. Thank you to Y Plate Imports. If you need a right-hand drive Japanese model car from over in Japan and you want it delivered and everything done turnkey, and you just get an amazing JZX or some right-hand drive car you've always wanted, hit up Y Plate Imports. They have been in business for quite some time and done tons of cars and can take care of you. Hit up them and just ask some questions and stuff. That's good for that. And also thank you to Torco Oils and Fuel. They are supporting Drift Week. Thank you so much to you guys. We're gonna be using their products on the trip. They make cool stuff, and I'm super excited to have a new sponsor. Thank you, Torco.
And Drift HQ.
So looking around the shop, which Sai can't do because he has a 50 mil on, we have a cool Porsche up there with a V8 in it, which you can't see. Tons of hot rods all over the place. We have an S10 dually pickup. Everything in here is a hot rod. Everything is super cool. What we have here is, Kurt here is gonna explain everything about this car. I'm gonna bring him in a second. He's gonna explain what it is, how it works, and everything else. But I think it's so cool. Everybody at the event thinks this thing is the coolest car at whatever event it goes to. It gets the most attention. I saw it out at Pat's Acres. It was completely reliable, didn't come off track, didn't look like it had cooling problems, didn't look like it had problems drifting. It was just a really solid drift car that's super unique and super interesting, and I want to know how much it costs. I want to know everything about it. So let's bring in the owner. Come on over here. This is Kurt. Hey, tell us about this thing. I don't know anything about it. I'm going to let you talk to the camera, and I'm just going to yell in questions whenever I have. So you just start explaining the thing, and I'll butt in every once in a while. Go for it.
So it's a road course chassis that I bought, turnkey off of Craigslist, I believe. And it's got a 355, small block, runs really good. Quick change rear end, and a Jericho 4-speed, so you can just rip gears all you want, no clutch, just let off a little gas. Good brakes on it. They have excellent brakes. Great cooling system because they never get warm. I mean, the thing barely you have to run the fan motor on it at all. And it's just an absolute riot. It's a little suffering in the angle, but that can be fixed. I'm still working on it as we go. I've had it out at Pat's Acres, Spirit Peak. It's an absolute riot. It sits super low. I modified the chassis to put 2 seats in it because, you know, NASCARs are usually single seaters. And I didn't like the plastic body that was on it, so I cut up an old scrap 72 Chevelle and been ripping it up ever since.
Is there any purpose to changing out the body for a different car? Is there any like actual reason you need to, or is it just aesthetics?
Well, I did do that for a passenger seat. I lengthened the wheelbase 6 inches to match the Chevelle, and then I exited the exhaust out the side because it's got 180-degree headers, and they usually run the exhaust right down the passenger side in the passenger well. So I did move that out so we could not burn the passenger.
Okay. And when you bought this thing, how many modifications did you have to do to it to go drifting? What are the first
0.
things you had to do?
I took it right to the track the day I bought it.
Okay, and how did it work?
It worked pretty well, except for the slicks that were on it.
Mm-hmm.
They hooked up way too well once they got sticky. And then I went to a street tire in the rear, and it actually worked pretty darn decent.
Mm-hmm.
Better than any other car I had as far as, sway or anything. It didn't have any of the body roll or anything like that.
Do you want to explain the horsepower, the engine setup, the transmission setup, the diff setup? Is it a locked, limited slip? Like what's going on with all those individual components?
Yeah, it's definitely a spooled quick change in the back. I'm running 604 gears in it. Super easy to change with just a couple little gear swaps in the back. The Jericho, like I said, is just a dog box, ripper transmission. Works really good. It's got a diaphragm clutch in it with puck style, so it's in or out. There's no real slipping of the clutch. And then the 355, I don't have a dyno sheet on it, but I believe it's just upwards a little above 400, 425 horse.
At the wheels or at the...
At the crank.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you like having a carbureted drift car?
It works really well. I haven't had any carburetor problems.
And do you have to adjust it ever, or you just pull it out of the trailer and that's it?
This carburetor is designed, it's a quick fuel Holley. It's designed to meter quite right. I did lower the float levels a little bit, and I have a really high volume pump on the fuel pump, so it keeps up with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have any flooding of it. I've never had it miss a beat, really, to speak of.
Okay, I don't know what anything means on a carburetor, so I'm just going to assume that it's all fine.
Yeah.
And the transmission?
The transmission is a Jericho.
Oh, did you already say that?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No.
My mind's racing around as we talk about this. And what did you do to the suspension to modify the suspension?
I really haven't done anything to the suspension so far on this car.
And does the suspension work well as a drift vehicle?
Absolutely.
So there's nothing you need to modify off the suspension. And are all these off-the-shelf components you can get at like Smiley's Racing or your local circle track place?
Well, being this is a road course car, it's an even setup car, so it's not meant to just turn left.
Mm-hmm.
So the spring rates are similar on each side. But as far as like Speedway Motors has a lot of parts, you can buy them anywhere they race cars at. So they're really, really common.
Okay. And this one's pump gas?
It is a pump gas 92.
Okay. And how much does it weigh?
My guess is about 2,500 pounds with me in it.
What? That's how much are the NASCARs? Like 3,600 pounds?
Yeah, I've took off so much weight of this car. When I cut the cage out and everything, I took at least 500 pounds just off the roll cage when I did the modifications that I did.
Yeah.
And then that body is surely just a shell. It is not,
But it's a metal
heavy.
body versus a fiberglass body.
It is, but it's super light. There's no weight plates on it. All the weight plates that ran down the side of the frame they do for equalizing the car, I've removed all of those.
Okay. So a NASCAR is not necessarily going to be as heavy as you think it is when you look at the rule book. You can cut a lot of weight out of one.
Oh, absolutely. If you're changing so you're not worried about 180 mile an hour impact, there's a lot of weight to be taken off. Maybe I'm a little light than I should be, but it really works well.
And do you want to share with us how much the vehicle cost when you bought it with the the fiberglass body and everything? How much did it
I
cost?
bought this one a little deep because the motor and tranny had been rebuilt. The guy had $6,000 in receipts in the motor. I ended up paying $9,000 for the base car. But as that's a little high, it's been really bulletproof as far as dependability as the motor and tranny goes. And I run the dog crap out of this thing every time I go to the track. So.
And how many times have you drifted it?
Event-wise, I've probably had it at 25 events.
Okay. And does it take a lot of maintenance?
Zero.
Zero? Wow.
I changed the oil, tires. I've gone through 0 brakes. I did add an inline handbrake. I'm running the stock for this car, 4-piston Willwood calipers on back. They seem to do fine running the blow-through handbrake. I changed the oil, and I've worked on a few things. I'm working on upgrading the wheels to 18-inch so I can get an actual grippy tire. I've been running whatever I can find on there, and it works pretty okay.
So I want one of these things. Where do I look online to buy one? And also, how do I search? What's the search terminology? You said it's a road course car. Is it a NASCAR road course car, a dirt track road course car?
Stock cars. It is a, I don't want to say NASCAR because that's a little high end for this. It's a local car that ran, it's a stock car basically, but a road course car. I would not buy it. I have a dirt track car. If anybody wants one for free, I got one out back. Once you take the body off, everything's so offset, it's crazy. Even the A-arms, everything's offset on the driver's side compared to the passenger side. It will not work unless you're starting from scratch.
Okay.
So road course is the key, so you get left and right. This other chassis I have over here is turnkey. I bought that car turnkey for, you know, right at $5,500. And I think I could go drift it tomorrow if I wanted to. Handbrake is definitely an add-on you need to add on for sure. And the angle, they get really good angle for what they are, but it could be a little better compared to what the modern Japanese cars have.
Do you know what the wheelbase is?
This one's 112 inches. It starts out as 105 or 106 is usually what they start out as. Okay. So that's what that car is too.
So even short, then it's still more than what we're used to in a 240SX. And then you lengthened it, and it's a lot longer.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody thinks it's a boat, except when they try to follow me, they're pretty amazed at how fast the car is. It really accelerates good. And this one has a unequal length 3-bar in the back, let's say. That other car is a truck arm suspension, which is what more of the modern NASCARs have on them. It's a long truck arm, 2 bars, and so I'm interested to see how that one hooks, but I guess they're supposed to hook up really well.
Okay. Is there anything you can think of that you could tell me as a potential buyer or the audience on YouTube that's a potential buyer for these things?
Well, like I said, don't buy a dirt track car. Don't buy an uneven, round, circle track car unless you plan on revamping the whole thing.
Right. And what's the difference between a dirt track car and an asphalt track car?
Well, if you watch dirt track at all, they transfer their weight a lot more. They sit a lot higher. An asphalt car is more equal length, bigger sway bars. So I would say, ideally, asphalt car.
And there's no such thing as a road course dirt track car, correct?
No, I've never seen
it. Okay, I'm
maybe a rally
treat
car?
me like I'm 5 years old here.
No, I mean, not that
old.
I know of. I'm not super proficient in a lot of stuff, but I like to go fast.
Okay. So I want to buy one of these as a drifter. Do you recommend it?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. If you like attention, it's a lot of fun. It's real raw. You know, I mean, there's no creature comforts in my car. So it's one of those things, people really enjoy riding in it. They tell me how smooth it rides as far as the way it transfers and stuff. So that's pretty impressive that it's they're really crude and raw cars when you're made out of just 2x3 tubing and a square tubing and some round tubing. So, you know, it's one of those things that it's a real raw experience. So our weather gets a little hairy up here, and it's kind of, if you got rain gear, it's probably a good idea to wear. Okay.
And you said you were originally going to drive this on Drift Week, but now you've bought my Lexus to do on Drift Week. And instead, I was really excited to see a NASCAR, I just keep calling it a NASCAR, but a circle track car, stock car, whatever you want to call it, on Drift Week. How possible do you think that would be? Were you planning on doing it? Would it work okay? And did you just not do it for a specific reason? You want to explain that to us?
Well, I have headlights and taillights for it. I was going to put a temporary on it and just run it kind of...
Temporary tag license plate?
Yeah, temporary tag on it. With DMVs being closed, wife not encouraging me to drive it, but I don't want to blame it on her because she's very supportive, very supportive. And so I just decided that maybe the Lexus was the better option for this trip, but I will make this street legal and we will be rounding it around. So it's totally doable. It's just not doable right at the moment.
Very cool. All right, I'm going to make Cy put on a wider lens, and then we're going to show you around the car real quick and try and show you as many details as we can find and just bug him and keep asking him. So come on. So I'm going to show you around the car a tiny bit, and then we'll have Kurt take it from here because I don't know as much about the car as he does. But a bunch of neat details on this car are, one, this body is basically just dropped on top of this other car, and that kind of comes with a different key points. A, you can drop whatever body on one of these things that fits and stuff in all the dimensions that you want, which is kind of a neat concept because when I say drop on it, you can actually drop the car wherever you want on it. if you look at this car should actually probably sit somewhere up here. I think Kurt said it was 8 inches dropped. So because there's no floor pan on this, and because the car is really just like a little shell, like an RC car that you drop on it, you can drop it however low you want on it until you run out of things such as headroom, the windshield hitting something, this thing going below the floor line. So at 8 inches, this car would actually be below the floor line. So all the hot boys that think they're low, this car is significantly lower than that. And when you look at DTM cars from the 80s and throughout all the decades and stuff, they would take the car, and section it out in the middle of the car and then collapse the car back together and create this super cool looking RC looking car. And he's done it by simply dropping it down and cutting the bottom of the car off, which is super cool. I assume that there's a bunch of bad things that occur with that, where the car gets really flimsy and he has to then just weld the doors closed, doors don't open, a bunch of the trim's not going to fit, and the car will become a little bit of a disaster in some ways. But it's super cool that it becomes like an RC car where the body comes on and off. Super unique. Which I assume if you're in a bad enough wreck, you're probably never going to damage the actual roll cage of this car, because it's like NASCARs hit walls super fast and stuff, which means you could potentially just go grab another chassis or another fiberglass shell and drop it on top, which is really cool. These things are probably insanely loud from the factory. So he has, from the factory, they don't really come from a factory, but he has an exhaust on here. If you come over here, side, there's some interesting stuff. So this is like a tube frame chassis, but I was told that you have a frame rail here with the stock lower control arm. Do you have a light we can borrow? I probably shouldn't have just run to grab this. Now I'm a little bit out of breath, but all right. Look in here. So these things are built off of a stock's frame rail right here. Looks like a stockish subframe that's been modified with diamond plate, a stock lower control arm, and then everything else is aftermarket. I'm breathing hard trying to talk like that. Whew.
Out of shape.
Super out of shape. I'm almost as out of shape as Cy here.
Whew.
All right, so you have an aftermarket knuckle there. Everything else is basically aftermarket. Tube frame structure all over the place. This V8, I don't know about the stock engine placement, but it looks super far pushed back. Look at these headers. Look at how much room you have to work in here. These headers look absolutely rad. You have so much room to work. You've got a bell housing engine plate set up. So instead of having a transmission mount in the back, right there, the bell housing is attached to the engine and all that stuff to the frame rail, meaning there's no transmission mount past that, and the transmission's just floating. And if you look on the other side, all the linkages and stuff are over there, and you can literally work on things from outside. In an S chassis, getting to those the top bell housing bolts is miserable. In this, you just reach in and burn yourself on the exhaust and can take it apart. Over here, you can see the other motor mounts. Just a piece of tube that comes up. Super simplistic. Look at how much room you have in there to work on the front of the engine to the fan setup. Now the other one over there was a mechanical fan, and this is electric, but you have a ton of room to work in this car. It still has a sway bar, which is interesting. Sway bar's right there. The steering setup is super old school. I'm super not used to that with 240SXs and stuff. I'll have to ask the owner how that works and how he likes it. This is a stock core support off of the other car. This is obviously not part of the Circle Track car, I don't think. If you look at the other side of that fender, you can see it's just a skin of a fender. As we come around here, this is not the body of the car like the original car at all. This is a purpose-built sheet metal interior. Has an AccuSump there, so if it bursts, it can spray the oil all over the driver and he screams. He's got like an eBay hydraulic handbrake and a stock car, which is absolutely hilarious. Little fan because it probably gets crazy hot in here. Super short shifter right there. You mind if I jump in real quick? All right, let's see if I can get in.
Slide that wheel off.
Do you go legs in first?
Oh yeah.
How do you get the wheel off?
Push button.
All right.
Put it up on the dash or something.
Let's see how comfortable this thing is.
Yeah.
I have to scream yeehaw as I get in. Uh-oh. Sai showing the audience, you can tell that I'm in pajama pants to shoot this because we just drove for 3 days to get to the Pacific Northwest. Oh, this is comfy and snug. Does it go on in any direction?
Yeah.
Oh, it kind of interferes with my legs though. This is super truck-like.
Well, it only turns a half turn each way.
What? So it's got like a steering quickener?
3-to-1 quickener in it, yeah.
Could you tilt this up easily?
Oh, sure.
Does this run into your legs?
Not mine.
No? So as I sit here in this, my legs have to be splayed out around the steering wheel. Super odd visibility because you sit very low in this thing. Because of the way he's lowered everything to still have room, I can't really see where the hood of the car would end very easily, but I'm sure I could get used to that. But for super close tandem, it would be a bit awkward until I got used to it. That's kind of probably, especially with a hood. I don't know, that'd be really interesting to see how that works. Steering wheel blocks all the gauges for me. Probably not the owner. Let's look around in here. Looks like he's rebuilt all the top of the roll cage. So the owner looks like, I see down there, he cut the roll cage right here, and this looks all new up here. Probably to make it possible for a passenger here, and then also just more space and to meet up with the body lines of the roof here. Am I saying all this right, Kurt?
Sure.
Sure or yes?
Yeah.
You're like, no.
I don't look at gauges, so they're over.
And the car doesn't overheat and you don't really have to pay attention to anything?
No.
Very nice. I like the seating position. This is snug. He has different door bars that come in a NASCAR. This obviously just wouldn't exist, and this is an aftermarket seat. What's funny is he has a halo seat on this side, which is like what you would think is a safer seat than this side. Does this side, did it normally come with the halo seat and everything?
No, well, yeah, that seat, the passenger seat was the driver's seat, but my fat ass don't fit in there.
Okay.
So
very interesting.
I moved it to the passenger side.
All right, I'm going to show the back of the car, and then I'm going to ask Kurt to finish up, and we'll look at that other car. Ugh. That's actually pretty easy to get in and out of.
Yeah, it's even easier when it's sitting on the ground.
It's easier than fabricating all the stuff for doors. All right, and as we come around the back of the car, he said he lengthened the wheelbase, shortened the back of the car, because from the factory, these things are like this long. They're much longer. And as we get down here, Sai, it has a fuel cell right here, and it has a quick change rear end, and lots of box tubing and stuff up there. Cool.
It's an underslung frame too, so the frame goes below the axle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing, the axle never gets in the way of anything.
Is this legit? You're like...
In 06 it was.
No comment. Okay, you want to tell us more about it? Fill in the gaps that I didn't get? Oh, and I'm not sure if I asked, how easy is it to flip these over to a more conventional tire setup that we use?
Well, because this is 5-on-5 lug pattern, I have purchased some 18x10s, so I'm hoping that's going to be the hot ticket. They do actually fit on, but the problem is they're 5/8 national course lug studs, so you can't find a thin lug nut. So I either have to modify the wheel or
Just drill 'em
modify
out.
the, yeah.
That
so
sounds
that
fine.
fits, yeah. just work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll work for me. You know, I mean, you just have to get it done.
Yeah. So what else did I miss on this thing? Because there's a million things I missed. What are the important points that you think we should know about?
Visibility is odd compared to a standard car.
Is that what I was mentioning because I was sitting low?
Because I've lowered everything so much. But even on the other car, it was real hard to see. But once you get used to it, the blind spots go away. It's just kind of like anything. You know, the doorposts disappear and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I did modify the front of the roll cage because I needed it to fit this car. This factory car is 1 3/4 inch. That is 1.5 inch tubing that I've modified the front with. And it just worked out better for the tubing bender I had and the way it worked.
Okay.
So
I was just looking at where it adapted.
Yeah, it slides down in there a foot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I was like,
and then it's plug welded. So yeah, the tubing fits perfectly into each other, so it worked really good.
Okay.
This has screw jacks on all 4 corners, so you can change the ride height in 20 seconds. You know, 1/2 inch wrench.
Okay.
Dial it up and down.
Can you still get to it really easily in the rear?
Yeah, there's holes right here in the sheet metal, right to the screw jack.
Oh.
You can put your 1/2 inch impact, electric impact.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, it works slick.
Is there a locking nut on there or anything
No,
like that?
it's just the way the threads are. They just jam themselves, so they don't unscrew themselves or anything like that. I added the flares because the rainy events we have, I noticed, I looked over a few times and my passengers were just eating a face load of water. Kind of was funny to me, but you know, it didn't really make it so fun for them. So I usually run quite a bit wider tire than what I have on the car right now, but these were what I could buy at the time, so I just run what I can get.
Something about import kids, they want to paint things, they want to put body kits on things, they want things a certain aesthetic. You have a very like patina, you know, hot rod aesthetic. Is this how it's supposed to look?
Yeah, I was, you know, we call it the Chevelle, the Shivelle instead of Chevelle. And it's just a word play because it's just a rat, you know. The first event I went to, we took the whole front end off the car, me and a buddy. We ran into each other, we were drifting together, and I did a 180 and he didn't. And we had a head on. So that's the second front clip I've put on it. It holds up real well, but it's just tin, so it's just smash and grab, buy the rusted out stuff from the wrecking yard and throw it on. But yeah, I didn't want to go anything cosmetic because it's just, that's the look I was going for.
Okay. Do you want to show us around that one that has the body off right now? Sure. Show us any other additional details or differences?
Watch your step, I got a mess going.
So immediately, some of the details I see are like, one, you have this whole setup, which is you can start the thing from the engine bay, which means it's like super race car. You don't even, do you start it from inside as well? Or
Sure, yeah, okay. That's just for when you're doing motor work.
Okay.
You want to test run it, warm it up, whatever you want to do.
This right here looks like you would hit this thing first before anything else. Is there a bash bar missing?
It had a whole, yeah, there's a couple extra bash bars, but when I sold the body off it, I sold that bash bar because they had the mounts for the front end. They usually stick out a good 1.5 feet. So this is really out of harm's way, although it is up front, just like an intercooler. Both these cars are subframe cars. That means for the rules that they were racing, they had to run a factory steering box, a factory subframe, and factory lower control arms. That's just the series of cars that they were built, and it happens, these two happen to be a real similar car. This is a way more modern car as far as the suspension. It's got upper tubular arms that are really adjustable, same 180-degree headers. This one's got a Super T10 in it with a 9-inch. So they're going to be similar, although that quick change is nice for swapping gears. And for some reason, this runs a mechanical fan, which I haven't seen before, but that must have been maybe one of the series like rules. Every track is different, every series is different.
Would you rather have a electric fan on this?
Yeah, it cleans it up. I guess I would.
Okay.
If the mechanical fan works fine, I mean, it just is what it is. You have to run a belt anyway, so why not have a fan on it? This runs a mechanical fuel pump too, where my other car runs an electric fuel pump. This is a 14-to-1 motor, so it runs nothing but race gas, C12.
These are those adjustable pieces he was talking about? That's the height adjustment thing? Yeah.
Yeah, and that one has a jam nut on it. I don't know why. I've never seen a jam nut on one of those.
Okay.
So that was on there when I got it. It wasn't locked down to anything. So I do run jam nuts because you can adjust the sway bars too, same way as the suspension.
Oh.
If you were doing, let's say you were taking a, or you wanted to transfer it. Yeah. If you wanted to run this car on an oval, you could jack the car around and the sway bar around with those sway bar mounts too. So they're really versatile cars.
Is this piece necessary?
It is because it has a cowl hood normally, and that's where it takes the air in from the windshield.
On your drift car, is it necessary?
No, but I like the way it looks, and no rain, no rain gets in it.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
You know, that worked out for me real well as far as that goes.
This is what it looks like, by the way, for... This is one of the problems with these cars when you buy it, because I was been bugging him, and I actually wanted to buy this car, but I've been so busy. I kept asking him and stuff. Maybe he'll still let me buy it. But It has a bunch of bars in the cage that you would need to cut out so that you could fit a passenger. And then you would also need to cut out this and create a transmission tunnel and sink the floor. Am I saying all this right? Yeah. Sink the floor and do more sheet metal work so that you can then put a passenger seat in it. Otherwise, you're going by yourself, and drifting isn't as much fun by yourself.
No, it's a real... Everybody loves to ask for rides in that car. I'm sure everybody gets asked to ride in their cars, but that thing...
Even more in that.
For how bad it looks, you know...
No, it looks rad.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's just like everybody wants to sit in and I see you drifting and I want to ride. I'm like, yeah, jump in. It's a good time.
So you were talking about the steering quickener. What's it like to drive this thing with a steering quickener? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Is there anything good or bad?
The first day, I was terrible because I was oversteering the car. Because, I mean, literally, it's this. You're no spinning the wheel, no returning the wheel. It's just...
How far does it go? Just that?
Yeah, like
just
over half.
And do you have really powerful power steering to compensate
for that? It does. It works so smooth.
Okay.
This car does not have a quickener in it. It's a fast box. But it's still probably only 1.5 turns each way, so 3 turn total.
That sounds more my speed.
Yeah.
And what's it like to drive on giant slicks?
They're interesting. When they're cold, they're like driving on cardboard tires. When they're warmed up, they're real sticky. If there's any gravel or rubber on the track, it's coming up from your tire. They work good, but they got to get warm to work good.
Okay. And do you run these ever just for steering and run normal tires in the back?
I have. That's how I used to run my car. I like the look. I got away from it because I'm working on getting more angle, and with that fat a tire, it really limits your ability to have room. So that's why I've changed what I've changed on my car.
And for this car, where do you get the replacement body? How much is a replacement body? How easy is it to set on here?
The fitment's real easy. There's only a few points, like you can see this rivet spot here, one more back there for the roof skin, and then you just start working off of that. The windshield just rivets all around the back, same with around the back of the trim. Doors and quarters kind of all hooked together with rivets, and the rocker panel kind of ties everything together into this tube. So adding a body's not terrible. But there's no way you're going to go and put a 93 Malibu body on here when you can update it with a new style Camaro body. So a guy might pay $1,200 for a brand new style Camaro body and update this look of this car to make it look like something pretty cool.
Oh, so these cars, you can just go buy the newer style body and pop it on for $1,200?
Yeah, I think so.
That seems really cheap.
Yeah, and they come in separate panels, so when you wipe something out, you can buy new panels and what have you.
Does it actually look like a Camaro?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, now I kind of want one.
Well, just look at look them up.
All right, I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, they're pretty slick.
I love all the race car components, like huge, super accessible oil filter. Everything looks super accessible. You need to bleed something down here, it's right there. Like,
it really is.
Everything is
wide open for working on.
Some of the things that are crazy is this thing is only like 2 inches off the ground. And it does have flat tires, but I'd imagine like it stays pretty low to the ground.
No, it's very low. And what's nice about these cars is whatever scrapes the ground isn't crucial. It's just frame. It's not, there's no low-hanging fruit, nothing. Your exhaust isn't getting drug out because your exhaust is running down the side. So that's what's really nice about my car. It hits the ground all the time. Everybody's like, you're showing sparks everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, that's no big deal. It's just tubing. So that's, they're purpose-built cars. They're built to run 250 miles at 6,000 RPMs all day. It's not something that you're running to the maximum. My car, I rev it only to about 5,500. That thing will live forever at 5,500. So, you're not asking for the potential of the car. I mean, you could.
That's nice. Especially with all of our like turbo cars and stuff. We turn them up way past their limits. And then we're surprised why they fail. We're like, oh my God, what happened?
So when you're running something under its limit, it really favors the, reliability.
Okay. Anything else to detail on this one?
Not really. It already comes with a, a fuel safe.
Can I sit in it?
Fuel cell. Yeah, absolutely.
This one's easier to get into. These seats are actually really comfortable.
Not bad, right?
No, they're good.
That's a big steering wheel, too.
Man. This steering wheel's ridiculous. It's like a clown steering wheel for a bus. Another thing to note is like, I can't see out of this thing at all.
But what are you not seeing?
Like where the front of the car is, because how I sit, I would need to practice in tandem.
Up there?
Well, no, I'd need to put like little vertical parking things off of like Japanese cars so I could see for a while. Otherwise, I would just hit everything. Another thing to note is your car had more headroom than this one.
It does, and I think the seat's elevated actually. I'm not sure. The dude I bought it from was pretty small. I've already raised this steering column 3 inches and shortened it at 2 inches probably.
Oh wow!
Yeah. So if you
the placement of the steering column feels pretty good.
Yeah, I did that myself because it was in my lap and on my belly.
Can you get a smaller steering wheel?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they have lots of different sizes.
It's just a standard style wheel.
Can I shift it?
Oh yeah. Well, it's kind of stiff, but.
Ugh, you can feel it's cold in there.
Yeah.
That gear oil. Very, very cool.
This one's got a really nice gauge package. You know, I mean, where have you seen an oil pressure?
I can't even tell if it's in gear or not. So is this a side shift?
Yeah.
There it is. It's not in gear now. All right.
It just takes a little WD on. They've been sitting a while.
Another thing to note is the pedals are offset from the driver. They're off to the left. You just need a little bit of time to get used to it. And they're also closer.
That, right?
Yeah, they're offset a good 4 inches maybe.
They make room for all the headers and everything.
Another thing that's kind of crazy is my foot when working on the gas pedal interferes with this, which is probably not a problem at all with NASCARs because you're just like foot down.
Oh yeah, and it's, you know, a lot of it is personal preference. You know, you change every car when you. Oh, it's all good.
Personal preference, you said?
As far as where you have those cooling tubes coming in, and you know what, this car has a Halon fire extinguisher setup too.
So I can pull it and pass out?
Well, let's hope you don't.
I noticed pressing this gas pedal and flooding your car out, it has incredibly long throw. Is that a normal thing for NASCARs?
Yeah.
Or circle track cars or whatever it is?
And also, this car has only got a 390cc carburetor.
That doesn't mean anything to me.
Oh, it's teeny. Okay. That's a 750. This is because that was a class.
So this gets better fuel mileage?
No.
Oh.
It just means it's modified and you could only have 390 CFM of air going into this motor.
Okay.
It was a class restriction. Kind of like what you've heard of restrictor plate races. Same kind of thing, but it's not the plate.
So can you just put a bigger carb on it and make more power?
Absolutely, a lot more.
Interesting. This seems real suspect going 200 miles an hour.
You don't have it mounted.
Oh, is it? Ah, there we go. That's slightly better.
Yeah, it's not very
slightly
good at
better. Is this a horn or just so you don't slam your face into it?
Yeah, that's a clown horn.
Clown horn?
Get your face on it.
That's funny.
I've never seen one loose like that. It's a little bit.
This one has much better visibility and gauges than that car. This looks like it's really like, not to insult your car, but this is really nice.
Oh, this is really nice. Yes. Yeah. No, 100%.
Is this whole, show this panel? Is this whole panel something you would buy and it's just a circle track like a piece and you just rivet it in? Yeah. That's really cool. I like that. I'm used to like terrible odometer gauges and stuff, and
no,
they're just
car
cheesy.
Is real clean as far as, you know, all the welding, the tin work is painted real nice. This was a really nice car. Too bad I cut it up. And I plan on cutting more out of it if I keep it.
So I'm a new person that's never driven one of these. Can you run me through things? So how do you start it? You just flip
up on.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the bottom one is
starter?
Yeah, that's the starter button.
And what do these do?
Well, turn one on. Let's see.
Oh, one of them.
That's the top one's the ignition. The other one, I can't see what it says. One of them's for the fire extinguisher too. There's a solenoid, I think.
Okay. But it looks like very simplistic car. You don't have windshield wipers or anything.
No.
Does yours have windshield wipers?
It was going to. I bought a motor setup for it because I needed to add that if we were going to be on the street with it.
I'm so bad at this. I assume that's an igniter coil thingy, and this is an ignition box.
Yeah, that's the ignition.
I don't know anything about carb cars.
The earlier cars ran double of each, so when one failed, you could just switch it on the go.
Mm-hmm. This, I assume, is an AccuSump
That's the
lever.
AccuSump, yeah.
So you've got a valve here. Now, Now, for drifting and for these engines, is it necessary, do you think, to have an AccuSump for drifting at our low Gs and everything else on normal tires? Or do you think this is just redundancy and like more stuff to fail?
AccuSump for me is, so that's holding 60 pounds of pressure right now. I can pre-lube the motor with that. So instead of having a dry sump motor, it's still a wet sump motor. I can turn that on and eliminate all the engine wear that startup creates. So they're a must in something like this.
But I mean, these normal engines, like a Chevy 350 goes 100,000, 200,000 miles without having one of these. We're just doing race car stuff, and they see very, seldom starts. We're most likely going to kill it by doing something really dumb. Do you think it's, I'm just saying, do you think it's like having extra pieces and you just have more fittings to fail? Or do you think it's necessary on this because of cornering speeds and stuff?
I think that it gives you a couple extra quarts too, capacity. So
yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just saying if you don't need it and you're just using it for
I
firing
have it,
up.
so I'm not going to take it off. How about that?
But you could accidentally not turn, flip the lever stuff.
I've actually, when I first got that, I hadn't turned it on. Luckily, it still functions exactly the same.
Yeah.
You just don't have that extra capacity.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So some things to note about this thing. It's a separate spring and shock. That shock looks pretty simplistic, doesn't look super expensive.
See those lead plates underneath, those big square things?
Oh, you can take those off and save 100 pounds?
There's hundreds of pounds.
Hundreds of pounds?
Wait, those things?
Yeah.
Why are they there?
They're lead weights
Oh.
to weight the car, so you're allowed a certain amount of weight.
Ah, so I see it on that side, but not this side right now. So if you can't see that side, you drop a extension down there, and you can jack up or lower the car off of that little tiny guy right there. I assume straight through that hole, which is really cool. Yeah. Meaning so much of this car is so adjustable very quickly and so much more simplistic than our drift cars. Very cool. You can look at this. This is a disconnectable bash bar, which is basically what most of our drift people aspire to build. Like they've been copying these parts. This could be a 30-year-old Circle Track car, and they've, like our guys are just basically copying something that the Dirt Track and Circle Track guys have been doing forever. Same thing with most of the construction of this car. This is what we're aspiring to build with our Pro-Am cars and our FD cars and stuff. Just super cool to see this stuff. And I know the big teams have known this forever and everything. I just was thinking, why don't we just skip all of that stuff and just buy the worn out Circle Track cars and just modify them for our uses? And I kind of want to do it, and maybe we'll be taking this one home. I still don't know if he wants to sell it or what, but maybe he just bought a car from me. Maybe I can buy this off of him, and we'll take this home with us because now we have a spot. Oh no, I said I'd take Zach's car home. Well, maybe you can drive a Corvette home.
We'll see.
He's already driven that Corvette home before. So he's got a bunch of cool stuff. That is a 12.5 to compression V8 400 and something cubic inch Chevy motor Porsche. He's got, I don't know what that is, some old Ford?
34 Plymouth.
Plymouth? Okay. He has an off-road Mustang here. He's got cool old school Broncos, Corvette, so much cool stuff. That truck thing, some drag thing in the corner that's neon green. Very cool. Is there anything else you'd like to tell us before you leave? Or before we leave? This is his place.
No, that's about it. Just
all right.
I like weird stuff, and
I just think that we've been messing around with so much modification, reinventing the wheel and everything, trying to build stuff. It would be easier to buy some of these things and just own it and kind of just like repair it over time and learn a ton of lessons off of it. I think these are cool. I wish I would have done this years ago. About 10 years ago, I actually did plan to buy one of these and do it, but it's one of those like things in the back of your head that you never get around to, because like the Lexus out there, the SC300, it kind of works in so many ways, and we know it works, and it's fairly comfortable, and it has windshield wipers, and we can drive it on the street. There's a ton of downsides to these things. They're old. They're carbureted, and I don't know how you do a carburetor. They're never going to be a street car, or probably not. You can't just like go get your friends to help you on it. We don't know a lot about the parts and stuff on them, and I would have to go learn about that, whereas a lot of my friends know Jay-Z stuff and know everything else. So it's very, very cool. That's all. I think that's the whole process. Thank you so much.
no problem.
Boom. End of episode. Hi, everybody. I want to say thank you for watching the video, and here is all the dates for Drift Week 3 out in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to be out on multiple, I think 4 public dates. You can probably see them over here. And we're going to be drifting, doing ride-alongs, entertaining you guys, driving across the country, having people walk behind me. I'll see you there. Bye.